The story begins with Lucifer's return, standing before a gravestone defiled with the words, Tomb of the Bitch. A crow hovers above him as the wind swirls, a dark reminder of his past. Lucifer places his hand on the gravestone, looking at a photo of his mother. He softly says, Mom, I'm back, signaling his return. Lucifer clenches his fist, anger and pain swelling up as he recalls the betrayal by his father, who abandoned them for a new life. His mind flashes back to that fateful rainy night when his mother, desperate, knelt at their father's door, pleading for their return. She begged, Please let the kids in. They're still your children. But her pleas were met with silence. Then the door creaked open, giving a false sense of hope. Instead of mercy, a vicious dog rushed at them. His mother, despite the fear, shielded her children from the attack, enduring the pain herself. Lucifer's mother, injured but determined, urged her children to run for their lives. Her face showed both pain and urgency as the beast continued its relentless attack. After the dog was called back, his mother, weak and wounded, told Lucifer it was his duty to protect his sister. Her words stayed with him as he grew older. A few days after the incident, just as life seemed to be settling, it took another dark turn. His mother was wrongfully blamed for something terrible. With no way out, she decided to take her own life. Her final words echoed in his memory. While coming back from school, he received her last call, apologizing to her children, asking them to leave Haidong and never return. Then she ended her life, leaving him with a deep and painful memory. Rushing back, Lucifer found his mother's lifeless body. The sound of his sister's helpless sobs filled the air as she clung to him, terrified and pleading for their mother. At that moment, Lucifer was only 14, while his sister was just 10. The weight of this tragedy would change them forever. From that day, Lucifer bore the burden of protecting his sister, facing harsh treatment and being targeted by an unknown assassin. Lucifer and his sister were mercilessly attacked by an assassin wielding a bloody knife. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, a mysterious man appeared, shooting the assassin before he could strike. He saved them both and promised to take care of Lucifer's sister, then took Lucifer away with him. Lucifer had been enrolled in the military, and 10 years passed since. The borders of Great China were ravaged by war, with tanks and soldiers clashing in a battlefield filled with smoke and fire. The chaos of war consumed everything around them, marking the beginning of Lucifer's rise in the ranks. As the war raged on, the army faced devastating losses. Defenses were shattered, generals fell, and the situation seemed hopeless. But just as everything was about to collapse, Lucifer appeared, storming the enemy camp with unmatched speed and precision. He single-handedly wiped out every enemy, turning the tide of battle like a whirlwind. Amidst the chaos, Lucifer easily took down the enemy commanders as if they were nothing, causing the enemy forces to collapse without leadership. His swift and decisive actions led to their defeat. The man who stood victorious atop the battlefield was none other than Lucifer, now known as Zhan Tiandi, the undefeated legend of the Chinese military. As the battle ended, he had single-handedly withstood the immense pressure, accomplishing an unparalleled feat. The soldiers below shouted in awe, hailing him as the god of war. Lucifer, now a powerful cultivator, returns with the might of both heaven and earth at his command. His cultivation has reached new heights, and as he stands strong, he wonders if his past enemies can withstand the wrath of a god of war. Now, after 10 years of living like a dog, bullied and stripped of dignity, Lucifer stands tall as the god of war. He vows to make Haidong tremble beneath his feet, ready to reclaim the honor he was once denied. As Lucifer stands, a group of men come into the cemetery and approach him, shouting in anger. They accuse him of trespassing, demanding to know if he saw the warning sign on the gate. However, Lucifer remains calm, unfazed by their hostility. He knows they have no idea who they're dealing with. The group of men laugh among themselves, boasting about their cruel act. They reveal that they were ordered to defile the grave, destroy the headstone, and write vile insults on it. They mockingly express surprise that someone showed up right after they finished their so-called masterpiece, completely unaware of the storm they are about to face. Lucifer realizes it was Shangguan Nalan behind the desecration. She used to be his mother's best friend, whose bond with her was destroyed by the arrival of a certain man. The man who came between them was the son of the wealthy Chen family, who fell in love with Lucifer's mother, a married woman, ignoring the fact that she already had 2 children. Her beauty had made her famous in Haidong, but she rejected his advances. Shangguan Nalan tried her shot at the man, but got humiliated by his brutal rejection. She blamed Lucifer's mom for her rejection. In her desperation to marry into wealth, Shangguan Nalan began plotting against Lucifer's mother. Using her family's influence in real estate, she forged contracts and took over their home in Haidong's old district and had it demolished overnight, leaving them homeless. To erase all traces, she forced Lucifer's mother into a grim choice: take her own life or watch her children die. To protect them, she silently jumped to her death, consumed with sadness until the end. Shangguan's cruelty didn't stop there. She ordered the assassination of Lucifer and his sister, hoping to eliminate any threats to her ambitions. Even in death, she sought to erase their mother's memory, fencing off her grave and hiring thugs to prevent anyone from visiting. Today is the 10th anniversary of his mother's death, and Shangguan ordered the tomb to be desecrated, scattering her ashes as a final insult. The thugs complain about how their day should have been spent at a luxurious event, celebrating young Master Chen's engagement, instead of dealing with these petty tasks. They seem frustrated, smoking and venting about their wasted day, unaware of the danger that Lucifer poses. Another thug steps forward, trying to humiliate Lucifer by demanding he kneel before them and crawl like a dog. The thug casually spits at the defiled tombstone, mocking its presence with a smirk on his face. Meanwhile, Lucifer stands there, his eyes burning with cold fury as he takes in the scene. The group of thugs bursts out in laughter, completely oblivious to the danger they're in. They continue to mock Lucifer, with one praising Da Zhuang's spitting accuracy, as if the desecration of the grave was some twisted game to them. One of the thugs arrogantly steps forward, taunting Lucifer with his ridiculous demand, telling him to kneel and crawl under his legs, offering a gold lighter as a so-called reward for his humiliation. The earlier thug, with a smug grin, points toward the tombstone, taunting Lucifer once again. He asks if Lucifer wants to see a demonstration of how to spit on the grave. Lucifer, having reached his limit, swiftly extends his hand toward the thug. The air shifts as his movements, fueled by the anger and disrespect shown toward his mother's grave, leave no room for hesitation. With a single, fluid motion, Lucifer grabbed the thug by the back of his jacket and effortlessly lifted him off the ground with one arm. The thug's legs dangled helplessly, his expression shifting from arrogance to sheer terror. With a single motion, Lucifer swung the thug by his jacket and slammed him into the ground with a powerful force. The impact echoed through the area as the thug hit the ground. Lucifer stood over the thug, his voice steady and firm as he pointed to the spit on the gravestone. "Get up and lick it clean," he said, his words carrying an unsettling calm as he added, "Do it with your tongue." The other thugs were stunned, whispering in disbelief as they watched Lucifer easily lift Da Zhuang, who's supposed to be around 180 kilos or 220 pounds, like he weighed nothing. They were shocked, realizing they were up against a force far beyond what they had expected. The thug, still gasping for air, looked up in desperation, pleading for his comrades to help. Meanwhile, the other thugs stood frozen, uncertain of their next move after witnessing Lucifer's overwhelming power. With a graceful motion, Lucifer used a cultivation technique and struck, and the thug's leg separated cleanly, almost as if it had been removed effortlessly. The once tough thug broke down completely, tears streaming down his face as he cried out in desperation, "My leg! My leg!" Lucifer's gaze hardened as he calmly commanded, "Clean it up with your mouth." His words sent shivers through the remaining thugs. The fallen man whimpered in pain, clutching his injured leg, but the thug, trembling in fear and pain, crawled towards the grave and, without hesitation, began to clean the mess with his tongue. His actions were desperate, and his hands shook as he obeyed. As the thug obeyed Lucifer's command, a loud whirring filled the air. The other thugs looked up, stunned. A helicopter descended, carrying a massive red shipping container. The sound of the approaching helicopters multiplied, filling the sky. Dozens of choppers appeared, each carrying large containers. With a calm and collected demeanor, Lucifer raised his hand and confidently gave the command, "Begin!" His words hung in the air, marking the start of something bigger than anyone anticipated. As Lucifer signaled the operation to begin, the cables snapped, and multiple containers dropped from the helicopters, landing with heavy thuds around the battlefield. The ground shook with each impact, surrounding the thugs in a sudden enclosure of cargo containers. Above them, Helicopters continued to circle, bringing in more reinforcements as armed personnel prepared to drop down, creating an overwhelming presence. Lucifer's reinforcements swiftly dropped to the ground, lining up in front of him and bowing in submission. The stunned thugs could barely process what was happening, their bravado vanishing in the face of this overwhelming display of power. Lucifer's soldiers knelt in unison, their voices loud and clear as they greeted him with unwavering loyalty. "We hereby greet the Master." Lucifer, standing with a commanding presence, simply said, "Commence." The weight of his words carried authority that left no room for hesitation. His followers immediately sprang into action with a loud, "Sir, yes, sir." They moved swiftly to fulfill his orders, fully aware that any delay would not be tolerated. As the followers worked quickly, one of them approached a large container. The container doors creaked open, and the golden light intensified, revealing stacks of pure gold bars neatly arranged inside. His subordinates swiftly moved, prepared to restore the desecrated tomb with the wealth before them. The grave, once disrespected, was now about to be rebuilt in solid gold, an ultimate show of power and respect. One of the thugs stared in shock at the open crate, his voice trembling as he said, "It's all gold, and there's 20 crates just like this one." His disbelief only highlighted the immense wealth Lucifer had at his disposal. The thug was dumbfounded, his eyes wide as he muttered, "This is beyond anything I've ever seen. Bringing this much gold as a sign of respect?" His companion added in disbelief, "If this was turned into cash, it'd be worth billions." As the sun began to set, the workers used most of the gold from the crates to rebuild the grave. As Lucifer gazed at the golden grave, memories of his mother filled his mind. She had once joked about wanting a grave made of gold to ensure comfort in the afterlife. Now, standing before this radiant monument, he fulfilled that promise, honoring her wishes beyond what anyone could have imagined. Lucifer proudly declared his promise fulfilled, standing beside the defaced tombstone. His vow was firm. Within a month, he would make the person responsible for this disgrace kneel before his mother's grave and answer for all they had done. His resolve was unwavering, and nothing would stand in his way. Someone using so much gold just to rebuild a grave, the sheer audacity and power he wielded terrified them. "Who is this guy?" they murmured in disbelief, realizing they had crossed paths with someone far beyond their comprehension. As Lucifer's presence grew more intense, the thugs fell to their knees, trembling. One stammered, "We're just following orders from Elder Mo Gen of the Chen family. We were assigned to monitor this area." Lucifer's expression darkened further. "That woman has wormed her way into the Chen family, controlling everything, her schemes as vile as ever," he thought bitterly. "For 10 years, she's weaved her way in like a parasite. Now, she controls everyone, including Mo Gen." The thug, forcing himself to appear confident, thought to use the reputation of the Chen family as his shield. He barked about Elder Mo Gen's fearsome influence, hoping to intimidate Lucifer. But Lucifer wasn't moved by the thug's attempt to intimidate him. Instead, with a fiery aura radiating from him, he stepped forward, the ground exploding beneath his feet from the sheer force of his power. As Lucifer's overwhelming chi exploded, one of the thugs was disintegrated, completely erased from existence, leaving no trace behind. Lucifer unleashed a devastating wave of chi, obliterating all of the thugs around him in an instant. The blonde thug was the only one spared, left to witness the carnage and devastation that befell his comrades. The blonde thug dropped to his knees, bowing and begging for mercy, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. Lucifer looked down coldly and scoffed. "An explanation? Humph, this king has never listened to anyone's excuses." The blonde thug's face went pale as he stared at Lucifer, trembling uncontrollably. His voice cracked with disbelief as he muttered, "This king? Only someone with unmatched power would dare call themselves that. Could it be the god of war?" Fear gripped him as he began to realize just who he might be facing. Lucifer didn't give the thug a chance to say anything more. With a swift and merciless strike, he ended the man's life in an instant. After defeating the thug, Lucifer took the blood-stained headstone and wrapped it up, sealing away the past as he prepared for the next step in his revenge. Lucifer handed the old headstone over to his subordinates. He mentioned that it was the perfect day to crash the engagement party of Shangguan Nalan's son and deliver this gift to her in person. Lucifer walked away from the cemetery, leaving behind the grand grave made of gold. The scene shifts to the Skyward Palace Diner, one of Haidong's most famous landmarks. The grand building stands tall, basking in the golden light of the setting sun. A luxury car pulls up to the entrance, and two guards stand at attention, ready for the important guests. As Lucifer steps out, memories of the past hit him hard. This land used to be his mother's house. Now, a grand diner replaces it, a constant reminder of everything he lost. His subordinate Tank steps forward, confusion written all over his face. "Why are you handling this personally?" he asks. Lucifer barely glances at him, his voice cold. "This is personal." He orders Tank to guard the graveyard, determined to settle this alone. Lucifer, carrying his mother's old headstone over his shoulder, strides into the diner. The onlookers glance at him, curiosity, surprise, admiration. His presence is overwhelming, and the women in the room are captivated by his powerful aura, whispering amongst themselves, some too mesmerized to look away. Unfazed, Lucifer drops the wrapped headstone onto a table with a loud thump. It's a statement. He's in control. He sits down, coolly picking up a glass of wine, not a hint of hesitation in his movements. All eyes are on him now. The whispers grow louder, the women commenting on his undeniable charm, their glances filled with admiration and desire. Yet, the tension in the room spikes as several uniformed figures quietly slip in. Leading them is Wang Shanyao, the captain of the security team. His gaze locks onto Lucifer, his expression stern. Wang approaches, reminding Lucifer of the restaurant's rules. "All visitors must register before entering," he says, though his thoughts betray him. He's already annoyed at Lucifer for disrespecting the rules set by Mrs. Shangguan Nalan, and in his mind, anyone without a proper invitation should be thrown out. But Lucifer remains unfazed, the calm in his eyes only making Wang more suspicious. "What's in the package?" Wang demands, his hand outstretched. The tension rises, but Lucifer doesn't flinch. With a calm voice, he replies, "You aren't worthy to open it. Only Shangguan Nalan can." Lucifer picks up a pair of chopsticks, moving with practiced grace. In an instant, he grabs Wang's hand, his grip strong yet effortless. Wang's face flushes with fury. "How dare you address her by name?" he shouts, struggling to free his hand. But Lucifer's calm never wavers, his grip unyielding. Wang, known for his strength, couldn't believe it. He, who could crush stone, was helpless against chopsticks. The room falls silent as Lucifer finally releases him. Wang stumbles backward, crashing into a nearby table. Dishes clatter to the floor, and a bottle of wine shatters over Wang's head, soaking him in red. The mix of wine and blood drips down his face as Lucifer tosses the chopsticks aside, completely indifferent to the chaos he just caused. On the upper floor, Chenning, the second young master of the Chen family, watches the scene unfold with amusement. He turns to Elder Mo. "What do you make of him? What do you make him?" Elder Mo smirks, his voice full of confidence. "It won't take more than a single round to deal with him." Chen Heading sneers in agreement. "Anyone who's tried to cross my mother ended up as fish food. This fool is no different." His arrogance filled the room, convinced his family's power was untouchable. He spoke as if the outcome was inevitable. Wang Shanyao, still fuming from his earlier humiliation, barked orders at his men. "What are you standing around for? Go deal with him." Desperation edged his voice, trying to reassert control. His confidence rested in numbers. Surely they could overwhelm the man before them. But just as the guards stepped forward, ready to strike, a voice sliced through the tension. "Hold on." Everyone froze. All eyes turned to Xuanwei, the manager of Skyward Palace's public relations department, as she stepped in. Wang Shanyao, recognizing her instantly, scrambled to save face. His demeanor shifted in an instant. "Greetings, manager," he stammered, bowing his head low, hoping she wouldn't hold his earlier failure against him. Xuanwei offered a warm, composed smile. "I'm Xuanwei, Skyward Palace's public relations manager. You can call me Wei Wei." She raised her glass towards him, her tone sweet and disarming. "Why don't we share a drink and discuss things slowly?" Young Master Chen's engagement banquet was underway, and any rash action could spell disaster. She needed to diffuse the tension. Confidently, she slid onto Lucifer's lap, her eyes gleaming with curiosity as she leaned in. "What kind of treasure have you brought?" she asked playfully, though her mind was already scheming, eager to uncover Lucifer's true motives and report back to Chen Heading. But Lucifer wasn't in the mood for games. Without warning, he stood, casually pushing Xuanwei off his lap. She stumbled, shocked, and fell to the ground. His voice was cold as ice. "You're not worthy to see it. Tell Shangguan Nalan to come herself." Xuanwei struggled to regain her balance, her face flushing with humiliation. She shot him a furious glare, her pride wounded just as much as her body. You shameless lecher," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. The tension in the room spiked as Xiao Mao Kai, one of the shareholders of Skyward Palace, stepped forward. He was livid. His eyes flickered between the fallen Xuanwei and the guards standing idle. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, more than 10 guards, and they had allowed such disgrace to unfold before them. Fury blazing in his eyes, Zhao Maokai stormed up to Captain Wang Shanyao and slapped him hard across the face. "Don't you do this for a living? What am I paying you for?" he snarled, each word dripping with contempt. Wang Shanyao's face burned with both pain and shame. He lowered his head, his voice small. "I deeply regret this, Master Zhao. It's entirely my fault." But Zhao wasn't done. His anger gave way to concern as he hurried over to Xuanwei, his tone shifting to one of worry. "Xuan, are you hurt?" His eyes searched her face, desperate to make sure she was unharmed. With tears in her eyes, Xuan whimpered, "He's been picking on me." Her vulnerable expression tugged at Zhao Maokai's heart, sending a wave of anger crashing through him. Furious, he demanded, "Get on your knees, apologize, and leave now." But Lucifer didn't react. His mind drifted to the past. This grand, chaotic diner used to be a peaceful home. He could almost hear his mother's voice calling him and his sister in from the yard for dinner, the sun setting behind them. Those memories felt so far away now. Zhao's face twisted with rage at Lucifer's calm indifference. How dare he? His fists clenched, his patience snapped. "Captain Wang," he barked, "deal with him. I'll take the blame." Captain Wang's lips curled into a sinister grin. Ready to prove his loyalty, he quickly gathered his men. The guards stepped forward with confidence, sure that their numbers would overwhelm Lucifer in moments. The crowd held its breath. Captain Wang gave the order, and his men rushed forward, ready to unleash brutal force. But Lucifer, completely unfazed, took a slow sip of his wine, not even sparing them a glance. One of the guards smirked, boasting of his strength and connections to the Chen family, taunting Lucifer. But Lucifer's expression didn't change. Cold. Unreadable. Zhao, still certain of his men's victory, guided Xuan away, anticipating the chaos. Lucifer didn't budge as the first guard swung his baton with all his might. In a smooth, effortless motion, Lucifer reached for the nearby headstone, his fingers wrapping around it. Suddenly, the headstone began to glow with a deep red aura as Lucifer channeled his chi into it. The energy surged, radiating through the room with such intensity that the ground itself trembled. A shockwave exploded from the headstone, sending the guards flying backward, crashing into walls and furniture with a force they couldn't withstand. The diner was thrown into chaos, tables shattered, glasses broke, and the guards were left sprawled across the room, defeated. But Lucifer remained perfectly still, holding the headstone, his presence unwavering. In the crowd, two women stared in awe, their amazement quickly turning to admiration. Chen Haiding, observing from above, narrowed his eyes. This was no ordinary man. He turned to Mo Gen, who carefully studied Lucifer before speaking. "He's impressive," Mo Gen admitted. "I'd say he could withstand 3 of my attacks." Chen Haiting leaned back, choosing not to interfere just yet. There was much more to learn about this mysterious stranger. As Zhao Maokai heard the loud bang, he assumed the guards were beating Lucifer. Feeling satisfied, he started to look back. But when he turned around, his confidence turned into shock. The room was in ruins, and Lucifer's overwhelming pressure had forced his men to their knees. Lucifer stayed calm, sitting down as his gaze landed on Zhao. His voice, commanding and steady, called out to him, making Zhao hesitate, clearly unsettled by Lucifer's presence. Shaken, Zhao blurted out, "This diner belongs to the Chen family. Today is the second young master's birthday and engagement banquet." Zhao tried to regain some control, warning Lucifer not to get too arrogant and mentioning that Lady Nalan would arrive soon. The onlookers whispered among themselves, reminding Lucifer that he was on Chen family property and warning him about fighting alone. They said that no matter how strong he was, being outnumbered was a losing battle. Lucifer simply scoffed, brushing off their concerns. Zhao, still trembling, muttered, "If you won't tell me your name, forget it." He turned to leave with Xuan, clearly trying to buy time until Lady Nalan arrived. But Lucifer wasn't finished. His eyes narrowed as he channeled his chi into the tombstone, turning it into a powerful weapon. With a swift motion, he sent it flying toward Zhao Maokai. The tombstone hit the ground just inches from Zhao, crashing down with such force that it left the floor trembling. Lucifer stood up, calmly walking toward Zhao. His voice echoed across the room as he reminded Zhao of his earlier threats. Without any hesitation, he declared Zhao's fate: death. Lucifer's spiritual pressure filled the room again, forcing Zhao Maokai to his knees. Zhao, trembling, tried to keep his defiance. He mocked Lucifer, daring him to take his life, confident that the Chen family's power would protect him. Lucifer's cold eyes showed no mercy. His foot rose, and the air around him grew even heavier. Zhao's panic rose as Lucifer's foot got closer. Desperately, he called out for help. At that moment, Chen Haiting and Elder Mo entered the room with their entourage. Chen's sharp voice demanded that everything stop. Xuan Xuan ran to Chen, immediately pointing at Lucifer. "He's out of control," she cried, telling a story about how Lucifer had pushed her when she spoke to him about registering. She clung to Chen, adding more accusations, saying Lucifer had even threatened Master Zhao's life and disrespected the Chen family. Emboldened by her words, Zhao Maokai, still on his knees, demanded that Lucifer help him up and kneel to be punished like a dog. But before he could finish his taunt, Lucifer's foot came down with immense force. With overwhelming strength, Lucifer pinned Zhao's head under his foot, using such power that the impact instantly took Zhao's life and shattered the ground beneath him, leaving deep cracks as evidence of the force. The room fell into stunned silence. As Lucifer walked past the lifeless body of Xiao, he didn't even spare a glance at the damage he'd caused. His focus had now shifted toward Chen Haiting. Approaching with a cold, intense aura, Lucifer asked in a low, menacing tone, "Did you just tell me to stop?" Chen Haiting trembled, his fear evident as Lucifer's cold gaze cut through him, stripping away any confidence he had left. Despite having Mogan for support, Chen's trembling only worsened. He tried to put up a front, but his voice cracked with terror as he denied giving orders to Lucifer. The crowd was shocked. Chen Haiting, once known for his arrogance, was now reduced to fear by just a look from Lucifer. They questioned who Lucifer could be to have such an effect on him. Mogan stepped in, guiding the trembling Chen Haiting to sit down, assuring him to leave the situation in his hands. The tension thickened as the old man prepared to confront Lucifer. Mogan smirked, admitting he had underestimated Lucifer. He originally thought Lucifer could only handle 3 rounds in a fight, but now realized he was capable of lasting through 10 of constant battle. The crowd marveled at Mogan's challenge. He rarely praised anyone so highly, especially to last 10 rounds in combat. They knew even seasoned fighters in Donghai would struggle against the old man for that long. Lucifer confidently asked Mogan if he was responsible for sending people to vandalize the tomb at Wanfeng Cemetery. He stood there with a calm demeanor, demanding answers. Lucifer's question left Mogan stunned. He immediately ordered his men to call Dufei and check on the situation at Wanfeng Cemetery, realizing that Lucifer might have a connection to someone buried there. He started to suspect that the mysterious item wrapped in cloth might be something deeply tied to the person buried there. Lucifer calmly interrupted Mogan's frantic orders, stating that it wasn't necessary. He had already killed everyone at the cemetery. Mogan stood in stunned silence. Mogan's fury boiled over, his face contorted with rage. He demanded to know Lucifer's true identity, realizing the enemy he faced wasn't just an ordinary person. Lucifer responded with a calm and chilling confidence, telling Mogan that he wasn't worthy of knowing who he really was. His arrogance only further ignited the tension between them. Mogan, now frustrated by Lucifer's arrogance, made it clear that things could either go smoothly or turn violent. But if it came to that, Lucifer shouldn't blame him for what would follow. Lucifer confidently offered Mogan a chance to fight for his life, saying that if Mogan could withstand just one move, he would win. Mogan, outraged by Lucifer's arrogance, shouted back, calling it presumptuous. The fight began, and Mogan charged forward with intense speed and force, shattering the ground beneath him as he launched his attack. Mogan unleashed a fiery energy from his palm, his face twisted with determination as he aimed at Lucifer. The room lit up with the intensity of his attack, but Lucifer stood still. With a simple wave of his hand, Lucifer effortlessly summoned the headstone, wrapped tightly in cloth, back to him. The force of its arrival caused the ground to tremble, sending shockwaves through the room. Mogan, seeing the massive headstone rapidly approaching him, could only mutter, "Shit." The stone surged through the air, leaving him no time to react. The headstone struck Mogan with explosive force, sending him flying across the room. He let out a pained "Gah!" as he struggled to regain his footing. Mogan's body convulsed as he coughed up blood, the force of the blow too much for him to withstand. His chest burned from the impact, leaving him gasping in agony. Struggling to catch his breath, Mogan stammered, Who, who are you? How could someone like you appear here, crossing all the way to Haidong? His voice trembled with a mix of awe and fear. Lucifer took a seat and casually asked, Are there any agate pomegranates here? His question sparked a memory of his childhood. There used to be a pomegranate tree in his yard that produced the sweetest fruit. He recalled how he and his sister would play under it while their mother washed clothes nearby. The memory of those carefree days lingered for a moment before he snapped back to the present. Lucifer's question about the pomegranates enraged Mogan, who demanded to know why such a trivial thing mattered. Struggling to maintain his composure, Mogan acknowledged Lucifer's power but reminded him they were in Chen family territory. He warned Lucifer about Chen Badao, the top martial artist in Haidong, urging him not to become overconfident. Lucifer clenched his fists as memories of Chen Badao rushed back. The man who once pursued his mother now stood at the top of Haidong. Back then, Lucifer had believed in his sincerity, but overhearing a cruel conversation between Chen Badao and Nalan revealed the truth. Lucifer's mind flashed back to that painful moment when he overheard Chen Badao's arrogant voice. Did you really think I, Haidong's most respected youth, would ever lower myself for someone like you? I gave you a chance, and you dared to refuse. He had said this to Lucifer's mother when she sought his help, and those cruel words cut deep, revealing the harsh truth. His mother wasn't cherished, she was scorned. But it didn't stop there. After hearing those words, Lucifer discovered the deeper betrayal. Chen Badao had played a role in driving his mother to her tragic end. That memory seethed inside him, fueling a burning desire for revenge. Lucifer clenched his fists, rage boiling as he remembered how Chen Badao had not only broken his mother's heart but pushed her to take her own life. Mogan, still furious but now desperate, barked at Lucifer to kneel and beg for forgiveness, saying that only by bowing 1,000 times might the Chen family leader spare him. Lucifer's patience was running out. He interrupted Mogan's rant, demanding a straight answer about the agate pomegranates. Stop wasting my time, he said, his voice cold and sharp. Then, in one swift move, Lucifer slapped Mogan, sending him flying across the room. Mogan crashed into the wall, breaking it with the force of the impact. As Mogan lay unconscious among the debris, a heavy silence filled the room. Everyone stood in shock, stunned by Lucifer's power. Xuan, wide-eyed and overwhelmed, gasped, Unbelievable! That was Elder Mogan! Her voice shook, struggling to make sense of what had just happened. Lucifer, calm but with an air of authority, turned to the second young master Chen and asked, I'll ask you again. Are there any agate pomegranates here? Second young master Chen, sweating and nervous, stuttered, We don't have any right now, but I can have someone get them for you. Good, but don't waste time. And remember, it better be an agate pomegranate, or, let's just say, things won't end well. His tone was almost playful, but the room was filled with tension. Meanwhile, on the 5th floor of the Skyward Palace diner, the Wen and Chen families were gathered, celebrating with smiles and laughter. They talked about the engagement between Wen Shaiting and Chen Heading, calling them a perfect match. The mood was lively, with drinks flowing, and everyone excited about the upcoming wedding. Shangguan Susu, the younger sister of Shangguan Nalan, stood up to address the crowd. She explained that her elder sister and Chen Badao were abroad, expanding their family business, and wouldn't be back for a while. Confidently, she offered to take charge of the engagement banquet in their absence, assuring the Wen family that everything was still on track. Wen Qingshan, the head of the Wen family, graciously accepted Susu's offer. He said her presence alone was an honor, as everyone in Haidong respected her. He then softly reminded his daughter to spend time with the second young master Chen, encouraging her to build a bond with her soon-to-be fiancé. Wen Qingshan, deep in thought, reflected on the Wen family's dire predicament. They had run into serious trouble, and they needed someone powerful to support them. Chen Badao was the only one in Haidong who could offer that help, and despite knowing his daughter Shuiting had no feelings for second young master Chen, he regretted pushing her into this arranged marriage. Shuiting acknowledged her father's decision aloud, but inside, she was torn. She knew she couldn't choose her own happiness. Her family's survival had to come first. Her thoughts drifted back to the man who once saved her life, thinking that their brief encounter might have been the only chance she'd ever experience love. Suddenly, a guard burst in, breathless, reporting, A man downstairs has killed Zhao Maokai, gravely injured Elder Mo Zhen, and is now threatening second young master Chen. The lively atmosphere in the room immediately shifted to one of tension. He was talking about Lucifer. Susu's face twisted with fury, and she slammed her hand onto the table with a loud thud. Who has the nerve to disrupt this place? Are they begging for death? Her voice was sharp and filled with anger. Wen Qingshan raised a hand, a calm smile on his face. President Susu, there's no need for you to handle this yourself. I'll take care of it easily. Just a simple note from me, and he'll back down without a second thought. With quiet confidence, he unrolled a scroll, picked up his brush, and said, "Let me pen a few words." That should be enough to scare off whoever dares to cause trouble, as if he truly believed it would work on someone like Lucifer. Wen Qingshan finished the final stroke with a swift flourish, rolling up the scroll and passing it to the guard. The guard, understanding the weight of the scroll's message, quickly took it, knowing that even the smallest words from Wen could strike fear. Wen Shuiting, seated beside her father, spoke up calmly, masking her concern. "Father, I'll go check out the situation." Wen Qingshan nodded, letting her take the lead. As Wen Shuiting descended the stairs, her elegance caught everyone's eye. "She's stunning," whispered some, while others remarked on how perfectly she matched second young master Chen. One guard thought, "If I could marry a woman like that, I'd die happy." Shuiting scanned the room, puzzled by the sudden chaos. Who would dare cause a scene here? She wondered. Her eyes locked onto a familiar figure, seated calmly swirling a glass of wine. Her heart skipped a beat. No, it can't be. Shuiting's eyes widened, her breath catching. "It's him," she whispered, stunned. The man she thought she'd never see again was right there. 2 years ago, while on a business trip overseas, she'd been caught in a deadly ambush with her father. She remembered the fear, the danger, and how her father struggled to fend off the attackers. Just when all seemed lost, this mysterious man had appeared, cutting through the chaos with unmatched strength and saving them both. That moment had stayed with her, and no matter how many impressive men she met, none had ever left a mark like he did. And now he was here, just feet away. As Shuiting approached, the guard scrambled to lift second young Master Chen. "Your fiancée is here, Master Chen. Don't keep her waiting," they urged. Chen's lips curled into a triumphant smile. He'd been chasing after Shuiting for so long, facing rejection after rejection. But now she seemed genuinely concerned. Has she finally changed her mind? He thought. Feeling victorious, Chen straightened up, his confidence returning. "Shuiting, I'm sorry if I worried you. Look, I'm perfectly fine," he said, extending his arms, ready for what he imagined would be a warm embrace. But as Chen opened his arms, brimming with confidence, Shuiting swept past him without a second glance. She darted straight to Lucifer, her face lighting up with pure joy. "I've been longing to see you again, after all these years," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Chen's world shattered as he stood there, arms awkwardly open, completely ignored. The room buzzed with whispers, some muttering, "Did she just ditch him? Before they're even married?" "Brutal." Another voice chimed in, snickering. "No wonder the guy stormed in like a hurricane. He was here for her. What a scandal. This is going to spread across Haidong like wildfire. The Chen family's honor is in ruins after this. How are they going to bounce back from such a public disgrace?" As Lucifer gazed at Wen Shuiting, a flood of childhood memories rushed back. 3 years ago, I saved her by chance, but I never imagined it would be Wen Shuiting, an old friend. He recalled their early days in Haidong, where he and his sister were often left out, but Shuiting had always been there for them. She was one of the few who treated us as equals, standing up for us against others more than once. Wen Shuiting, too, reflected on the past, grateful for the moment when she and her father were saved. 3 years had flown by, and she had thought she'd never see her rescuer again. Introducing herself as Shuiting, she pondered how to properly address the man who had changed her life. Lucifer then revealed his name to her, introducing himself as Zhan Fei, just one of the many names he used, including Lucifer. He remembered how, after being taken by a mysterious figure, his childhood name, Zhan Wuqing, was changed because it sounded weak and feminine. Wen Shuiting cheerfully remarked how Zhan Fei shared the same family name as a friend of hers, mentioning it had been years since she last saw him. Zhan Fei remained composed, hiding the fact that he was the very person she was referring to. With a mysterious tone, he assured her, "Fate will naturally bring people together again when the time is right." Meanwhile, back on the 5th floor of the Skyward Palace diner, the atmosphere had settled. The earlier disturbance seemed to have faded, and the group of elders resumed their conversation, now more relaxed. One of them lightheartedly praised Wen Qingshan's quick calligraphy, joking that it must have scared the troublemaker away. Shangguan Susu, sipping her tea, was pleased with how things were unfolding, seeing the marriage as a key connection that would bring honor to her family. The earlier chaos now felt like a distant memory as the group relaxed. Suddenly, the door flew open with a loud slam. A servant rushed in, his face pale and panicked. He stammered, trying to relay troubling news about the chaos downstairs. Mr. Wen chuckled, predicting the request before it was even spoken. "I'm sure the man downstairs wants more of my calligraphy," he said, amused. He instructed the servant to tell the man that receiving the earlier characters was already a great fortune, and asking for more would be greedy. The servant, clearly flustered, hurriedly tried to correct Mr. Wen's assumption. His words stumbled out, panicked, as he tried to explain that the issue had nothing to do with more calligraphy. Instead, it involved Miss Wen and the man, publicly. Mr. Wen casually brushed it off, assuming it was just Shuiting and young Master Chen being affectionate. Susu eagerly joined in, excitedly talking about her hopes for Shuiting to become pregnant with a baby boy before the wedding, imagining how thrilled the family would be. But the servant, growing more frantic, insisted that Mr. Wen urgently come to see what was truly happening downstairs. Realizing that something serious was unfolding, Mr. Wen followed the servant down the hallway, his heart beginning to pound. The urgency in the servant's voice made it clear this wasn't just a minor issue. As Mr. Wen reached the balcony and looked down, his eyes widened in shock. There, at the center of the chaos, stood Lucifer and Wen Shuiting, locked in a tight embrace, while young Master Chen knelt on the floor, weeping uncontrollably. Mr. Wen's heart raced and his mind spun as he tried to make sense of the scene. "How did this happen?" he muttered, unable to comprehend the sight before him. As Mr. Wen stood frozen by the shocking scene below, Susu, unaware of the chaos, made a light-hearted comment, laughing as she wondered if her nephew had caused trouble again. She recalled how, not too long ago, he had stirred up drama after becoming infatuated with a girl, an incident that escalated behind closed doors but was smoothly covered up by the family. But when Susu reached the balcony, her smile vanished. Her gaze locked onto the sight of Wen Shaiting in Lucifer's arms, while young Master Chen knelt on the ground, crying. Shocked and enraged, Susu's voice cut through the hall, demanding an explanation. She directed her anger at Mr. Wen, scorning the scandalous display of Shuiting embracing another man in front of her fiancé, young Master Chen. For a woman from such an esteemed family, this is a disgraceful act, one without any sense of shame, she spat. Mr. Wen struggled to respond, confused and blindsided. Just moments ago, he had been boasting about his influence, and now his daughter was at the center of a scandal that could ruin his reputation. This was not how things were supposed to unfold. Susu, clearly livid, wasn't going to let it slide. She demanded an explanation from Mr. Wen, warning that the Chen family's name would not be tarnished by what she saw as foolish actions. Her tone turned sharp as she threatened Mr. Wen, making it clear that if he didn't provide a satisfactory answer, he would have to face her powerful brother-in-law, and the outcome would be disastrous for him. Feeling overwhelmed, Mr. Wen decided to head downstairs to get a clearer understanding of the situation. Storming into the hall, he called out his daughter's name, disbelief and frustration evident on his face. Shiting hurriedly spoke up, still standing close to Lucifer, and tried to explain. She pointed to Lucifer, introducing him as their great savior, hoping her father would recognize him. Mr. Wen's eyes lit up with realization. As the pieces fell into place, he finally understood. This wasn't just any man. This was the one who had saved them years ago. Grabbing Lucifer's hands in gratitude, his expression softened, excited to finally meet the man he had long searched for. Mr. Wen studied Lucifer, a sense of familiarity dawning on him. He couldn't quite place it, but felt sure he had seen him before. Shuiting quickly clarified that Lucifer's name was Zhan Fei, not Shan Tian, hoping to clear up any confusion. Lucifer kept his composure, hiding the deeper connection that remained unknown to both Shuiting and her father. Despite their shared past, they still hadn't recognized him as their old childhood friend, who once joined them at family meals and was treated kindly by Wen Qingshan. Meanwhile, Chen rushed to his aunt's side, frantic and furious. "Aunt, you have to do something," he pleaded, his voice trembling. He hastily explained that Lucifer, the same man causing all this trouble, had stormed in, carrying something unusual, demanding to see his mother. He added that Lucifer had easily taken down Mo Jen and all the security guards, leaving Chen humiliated and desperate for help. Susu's eyes narrowed and she moved with confidence, her presence commanding attention. She would not tolerate anyone disrupting her family's territory, especially after Chen's complaint. Her anger flared as she lashed out at Wen Qingshan, furious that he had allowed his daughter to get involved with Lucifer. If I had known how low she'd stoop, I would have never let her into our bloodline, she sneered, her words cutting deep. Susu's voice was cold as she suggested dissolving the marriage and demanded the return of the bride price, tenfold. And to make matters worse, she commanded that Shuiting and Lucifer kneel before her nephew and beg for forgiveness, or they wouldn't leave the hall unscathed. Wen Qingshan, flustered and anxious, pleaded with Susu to hold back, urging her not to push things too far. Shuiting, deeply hurt by the cruel accusations, questioned how Susu could be so heartless, struggling to keep her emotions in check. Lucifer stepped forward, placing himself between Shuiting and Susu, shielding her from the harsh words. His gaze was unyielding as he faced Susu, and with a calm yet defiant tone he asked, "What if I don't?" His stance was firm, making it clear he was ready for whatever would come next. Susu's eyes blazed with fury. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed, her voice low and sharp, filling the room with tension. She called out for Mr. Westwind, her voice echoing with authority. The atmosphere shifted as all eyes turned toward the staircase, where Westwind Li appeared, descending confidently. "I'm here," he announced. Shuiting stepped forward urgently, warning Lucifer about Westwind Li's deadly reputation. "He's Chen Badao's enforcer," she whispered, her voice shaking. "People fear him for his brutal strength. Please, be cautious." Chen Hiting smirked, stepping forward with a cold smile. "Westwind, don't kill him. Make him suffer." "I want him to beg for death, but live with regret for the rest of his life," he ordered, his words dripping with malice. Rage burned inside him. "How dare he steal my fiancée? This humiliation, I'll never forget it," he thought bitterly. Nearby, Mo Jen, struggling to get up, barked at the guards. "Help me up," he demanded, his gaze locked onto the unfolding scene. "I want to see Westwind tear that arrogant kid apart." Westwind towered over Lucifer, his eyes cold and calculating. "I'll give you 3 seconds," he said, his voice steady but full of menace. "Kneel or face death." The tension was suffocating. Susu's face twisted in anger as she ordered Westwind to deal with Lucifer mercilessly, emphasizing that he was her master's enforcer and that his actions carried weight within the Chen family. Chen stepped forward, his anger boiling over, and taunted Lucifer, declaring, "From now on, you're nothing but my obedient dog." His voice dripped with arrogance, fully expecting Lucifer to bow down. Seething with rage, Chen shifted his fury towards Shuiting, shouting at her, "You dared to publicly seduce this man? I'll make sure you regret this disgraceful act," he bellowed, his tone filled with bitter contempt. Shuiting finally spoke up, locking eyes with Chen Heiting. "I never had feelings for you," she said firmly. "Just stop chasing me." Her words hit him hard, and anger flashed across his face. He couldn't accept that she'd choose Lucifer over him, and his frustration spilled over as he demanded to know why. But Lucifer's response was a cold, mocking smile. He calmly put a hand on Chen's face and asked, "Where's the agate pomegranate tree I asked you to buy?" His tone was dripping with sarcasm, as though Chen had failed at the easiest job. Chen, humiliated and boiling with rage, shoved Lucifer with all his strength, then turned to Westwind Li, shouting, "Finish this!" Westwind stepped forward, giving Lucifer a taunting look. "Are you ready to leave this world?" he sneered, trying to shake Lucifer. But Lucifer didn't even look at him. He treated Westwind's words like they were nothing, focusing only on Chen as if Westwind didn't exist. Calm and steady, Lucifer reminded Chen once more about the agate pomegranate, his quiet confidence radiating power. Then, as if an invisible force had been released, a gust of energy burst from Lucifer, knocking Chen across the room. Chen struggled to his feet, panic in his eyes, and shouted desperately for Westwind to help him. Seeing his chance, Westwind moved. He charged at Lucifer, his steps cracking the marble floor beneath him. Each footfall sent vibrations through the room, his fist blazing with fiery energy. He rushed forward, yelling, "It's too late to back out now." But as he got close, he noticed something, a badge hanging from Lucifer's waist. It bore the black insignia of the War Wings Army, a symbol reserved for the most elite commanders. Westwind's mind flashed back to his own attempts to join the War Wings Army, his dreams crushed when he was eliminated in the first round. Still, he couldn't believe it. This has to be fake, he thought, brushing it off. Probably just a cheap trick to intimidate people. Fueled by his disbelief, he lunged again, throwing a punch aimed directly at Lucifer's face, only to hit thin air. Shocked, he turned around to find Lucifer standing behind him, his back to Westwind as though he wasn't even worth the effort. Calmly, Lucifer asked Chen again, "Where's the agate pomegranate tree?" Westwind felt his rage flare. Ignored and humiliated, he charged forward once more, his entire body wrapped in a fiery glow. His fist blazed with intense heat as he closed in, ready to land a decisive blow. But as he drew near, Lucifer's coat shifted, fully revealing the black badge at his waist, the ultimate rank in the Warwing's army, a rank that only the highest commanders ever achieved. Suddenly, a powerful energy shield materialized around Lucifer, blocking Westwind's punch and sending a shockwave through the room. The force threw Westwind backward, leaving him reeling. As he steadied himself, realization finally dawned. This wasn't an ordinary defense, it was the legendary energy shield technique, something only the elite could command. Westwind's disbelief melted into pure shock. The truth hit him like a sledgehammer. This man standing before him was the Emperor of War. Understanding his mistake, Westwind dropped to his knees, bowing deeply, knowing he had no hope against someone of such power. In that moment, he fully grasped just how far out of his league he was. Susu and Chen Head-Ting noticed Westwind Li acting strangely, and both assumed something was wrong. Susu, concerned, asked if he felt unwell, while Chen, panicked, called out for someone to get help. Quickly assessing the situation, Chen's voice turned urgent as he addressed the crowd. "Westwind Li looks like he's having a heart attack. We only have minutes to save him. Forget the meds. He needs CPR to wake him up. Then we can get him to the hospital." Without wasting time, he turned to one of the guards, ordering him to perform mouth-to-mouth, his voice sharp and commanding. Susu, watching from a distance, was quietly impressed by Chen's quick thinking, feeling he'd soon make a name for himself. Just as the guard leaned in to help, preparing for mouth-to-mouth, Westwind Li suddenly sprang to his feet, eyes blazing with fury. His expression left no doubt. He was furious. Before anyone could react, Westwind struck the guard with a powerful slap, sending him flying into the crowd. Chen cautiously approached, about to say something, but Westwind silenced him with a swift, brutal strike that cut him off mid-sentence. Chen stumbled backward from the force, crashing into a chair. "A heart attack? You're more foolish than I thought." Westwind sneered, openly mocking him. Anger brewed in his mind as he compared Chen to his father, Chen Badao, noting how this son was nothing like the sharp and powerful man he admired. Susu, stunned by the outburst, stood her ground. "Mr. Westwind, have you lost your mind?" she demanded. But Westwind, desperate and afraid for his life, muttered under his breath, "Damn it, do you want me dead? Keep me out of this." His frustration boiled over as he thought, "She's arrogant and clueless. What a hopeless combination. Shangguan Susu is a lost cause." Hearing his words, Susu's face twisted in anger. She snapped, "How dare a mere servant talk back to me? You ungrateful fool. Just wait until my brother-in-law gets here. You'll regret this." But Westwind didn't hesitate. He slapped her hard across the face, sending her crashing into the table, scattering dishes and cups as she fell in a daze. Shangguan Susu slowly got up, rage filling her eyes, and yelled for security to arrest Westwind, calling him a crazy old man. But Westwind, now lost in his own anger, slapped her again, harder this time, knocking her back. Not done, he followed up with a fierce kick, sending her to the ground with a painful scream. With fear gnawing at him, he realized that no matter how powerful Chen Badao was on the East Coast, he couldn't stand up to the god of war. Westwind knew his only hope was to beg for forgiveness and somehow survive this mess. Susu, fuming and wounded, spat out threats. She called him a traitor to her family, promising to make him pay, threatening to rip him apart and feed him to the dogs. But before her rant could continue, a massive boom echoed from the entrance, cutting her off. She turned, startled, as the doors burst open, filling the room with shockwaves. Tank, one of Lucifer's most loyal and powerful warriors, strode through the entrance, unstoppable and ready to defend his leader. Without a word, Tank marched up to Susu, grabbed her by the leg, and lifted her off the ground as if she weighed nothing. Susu, defiant, demanded to know who he was and what he wanted, but Tank's expression remained steady, his voice calm yet firm. "Anyone who disrespects my lord faces consequences," he declared. Then, with one powerful move, Tank slammed her into the ground, the force creating shockwaves that rippled through the hall. The impact echoed, a clear sign of his immense strength. Tank lifted Susu again, as if she weighed nothing, his grip like iron. Her body hung limply, and her face went blank, overwhelmed by the sheer force she'd already endured. But Tank wasn't finished. With one powerful motion, he slammed her into the ground again, creating a shockwave that sent debris flying across the room. As he stood over her, his presence heavy and unyielding, Susu managed to whisper, barely audible, "Spare my life." But Tank was far from done. He raised his hammer, gripping it with fierce determination, and swung it down with brutal force, sending yet another shockwave through the room as it struck. With his task complete, Tank calmly walked back toward Lucifer, leaving an air of awe and fear hanging over the crowd. The onlookers could barely process the strength he had shown. Tank reported to Lucifer that their men were already watching the cemetery, awaiting further orders. Lucifer gave him a playful smirk, reminding him, "Tank, this isn't a battlefield." His tone was light, with a hint of sarcasm, gently teasing Tank about his habit of getting a little too enthusiastic with the smashing. Standing tall, Tank rested his hammer by his side, sending a clear message to anyone who dared to rise against them. He warned the crowd with a calm, steady voice, daring anyone to make a move. If they did, they'd face his hammer first. Paralyzed by fear, the onlookers stayed frozen, not willing to test him. Westwind Li dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by shock and fear. Unbelievable. Just one of his men, and he has such power. If that hammer had hit me, I'd be dead, he whispered to himself, horrified. Mogan joined him, realizing the young man he'd once mocked held incredible strength, and now, faced with Tank's raw power, he felt his own mistake all too clearly. Even the guards and Xuan dropped to their knees, crushed by the sheer dominance Tank had displayed. Chen He-ting, trembling with terror, fell to his knees, pleading for his life. His voice was shaky, filled with desperation as he begged, "Please, don't kill me." The entire room was silent, blanketed in fear and submission, as not a single person dared to make a move against the unstoppable force standing before them. Lucifer, unaffected by the chaos, crouched down beside Chen He-ting, his gaze cold and steady. Lightly tapping Chen's face, he smiled, a chilling glint in his eyes. "So," he said smoothly, "where's my order?" Chen stammered in terror. Yes, right away." He gestured frantically to his men, shouting, "Bring the agate pomegranate, now!" His desperation was clear, knowing even a second's delay could mean his doom. Within moments, a man rushed forward, handing over the small tree. Chen, hands shaking, presented it to Lucifer. "Please, here's the agate pomegranate. I hope it's what you wanted." Lucifer took the tree, examining it with a calm smile. "I'll give this to my sister," he remarked lightly, but everyone felt the weight behind his words. Trying to steady himself, Chen added, "Please, take it. My parents aren't here, but maybe you can visit again to meet them." Lucifer's smile vanished. "Since your mother's absent, you'll pass her a message. In a month's time, let's see if your family can survive." With a flick of his hand, Lucifer summoned his chi, sending the massive headstone flying straight at Chen. Before he could react, it crashed into his legs with brutal force, pinning him to the floor. His scream filled the hall as the stone crushed his limbs, splintering the ground beneath him. Lucifer turned away, the pomegranate tree in hand, his steps calm as dust and debris settled around him. Behind him, Shangguan Susu, battered but defiant, used her last strength to whisper, "Don't think you've won. When my brother-in-law returns, he'll make you pay." Lucifer glanced at her, his gaze unwavering. "Anyone who insults me will face the consequences," he said coolly, stepping over her as though she were nothing. Tank fell into step beside Lucifer, hammer at the ready. The room stayed tense and silent as they exited, leaving a stunned crowd behind. Minutes later, Lucifer and Tank were driving through the city in their Range Rover. Tank glanced at Lucifer. "Your Majesty, are we heading to find Wushuang?" Lucifer looked at the tree, thoughts swirling. "Her real name is Zhang Wushuang. After all these years, I've finally found her." His eyes sharpened with determination as he replied, "Yes." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, then please comment part 2 down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us.